Depending upon which scholar you ask, the book of Ecclesiastes is either life-affirming or depressingly pessimistic. The writer is Kohelet, translated simply as the wise man, and it certainly can be read as one man's search for wisdom and understanding. He ends up creating a book, however, about the limitations of worldly wisdom and all of life's delusions. Meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher, utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. So he wrote. Life seemed to him simply an endless cycle of pain and frustration without meaning or purpose. And God knows there are many people who would agree with him, and certainly for good reason. Life seldom lives up to our expectations. And yet somehow, he still holds on to a firm belief in a God whose power, justice, and unpredictability are sovereign. His conclusion seems to be that in life, a person can do nothing better than to eat and drink and find satisfaction in their own toil, because that is their lot. For who can bring them to see what will happen after them? In other words, don't try to figure out what life is about. You never will. But you can find at least some momentary satisfaction in what you do, or what you create, or what you experience, or who you help along the way. He has made everything beautiful in its time, so he wrote. He has also set eternity in the human heart. Yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. I know that there is nothing better for people than to be happy and to do good while they live. The book contains a lot of passages that are often extracted from the whole, and sometimes even used to say things that are contradictory to his main message. But it also contains words of wisdom and sometimes practical advice as well. Practical advice that can stand truly on its own. One such passage that is often overlooked is found in Ecclesiastes chapter 4. It goes like this. There was a man all alone. He had neither son nor brother. There was no end to his toil. Yet his eyes were not content with his wealth. For whom am I toiling, he asked, and why am I depriving myself of enjoyment? This too is meaningless, a miserable business. Two are better than one, because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls, and there's no one to help them. In these words, there is one great key to understanding and living life in a worthwhile manner. Two are better than one. Two heads are better than one. Two hearts as well. When two or more work together for a common purpose, it is far more likely that they will have a good return for their labor. They are not only more likely to become successful, but there is twice the joy in knowing that someone else is going to benefit from what you do. It was so from the very beginning. As human beings, made in the likeness of God, we simply were not created to live alone. As theologian Walter Kaiser said, the purposeful life is lived among, with, and in constant consideration of others. Today, human isolation is becoming a growing problem, even as the world becomes more crowded. Even a person with a lot of friends can feel lonely if they somehow feel disconnected from all those around them. I believe the church in part exists now as one means to keep us connected, not only with God, but with each other as well. Because living in isolation is spiritually unwise, as well as mentally and physically so. We need other people in our life to help us through the ups and downs and to keep us focused on what really matters. Although Jesus often spent time alone in prayer, almost all of his teachings focused on life in community with others. Later, his disciples went forth and created communities of faith not individual believers who lived as hermits. The New Testament, in fact, is full of what are called one another commands. By one count, there are at least 59 one another passages in the Bible. The phrase love one another occurs 15 times all by itself. Other passages in the New Testament also encourage us to be devoted to one another. Honor one another above yourselves. Live in harmony with one another. Build up one another. All these passages are about living in community with each other, and there are many more. Be of the same mind with one another. Don't bite, devour, and consume one another. Patiently tolerate one another. Accept one another. Be kind, tender-hearted, and forgiving to one another. And the list goes on and on and on. Clearly, becoming a Christian was never about being a solitary believer. Even Jesus promised his disciples not that he would be there just for them, but rather that where 2 or 3 gather in my name, there am I with them. Being Christian is a together thing, best accomplished within a loving community of faith. Ian Provan, an Old Testament scholar, warned that in our current Western culture, we have defined almost all of life's goals individually rather than communally, and that is a mistake. The Bible will have none of this, he wrote. The individual in relationship to God is at the same time inseparable biblically from those other individuals who as creatures are also in relationship to God. This is why biblically it is impossible to drive a wedge between being in right relationship with God and being in right relationship to our neighbors. The one involves the other. Life is about you living in community with all those around you. This obviously has implications for marriage and for family. The man described in the book of Ecclesiastes seemed to have no family, and that is why his life was meaningless to him. For whom am I toiling, he asked, and why am I depriving myself? I believe that family, in whatever form it takes, helps to give life meaning. That is not the only relationship that you have with others, however, and our family could and should become much bigger than that. It should encompass everyone around us. We live in a divinely ordained relationship, even with those who disagree with us. And so we need to find ways to get along with them and with all those who share this planet with us. In fact, there really is no us and them. We are just us. And life is better lived when we strive to make life better for all of us. As the wise man who wrote down the words found in the book of Ecclesiastes said, when there are 2, if either of them falls down, one can help the other up. And in this, I believe we will find the antidote to a life that feels meaningless, because there is always someone we can help. And if we are paying any attention at all, we're going to also discover that there is always someone who wants to help us when we fall. In the puzzle and problem of life, 2 are always better than 1. I believe that our world would have fewer problems if there were fewer people who felt alone in life. And I believe that it is time that we begin to change that. Be safe, and God bless you.